Now we'll talk about the hormonal regulation of the glycogenesis or glycogenolysis, or hormonal regulation of the glycogen metabolism. So before starting this hormonal regulation of the glycogen metabolism, I want you to know the detail about the glycogenesis and glycogenolysis step. So the glycogen is metabolized by glycogen phosphorylase into glucose 1-phosphate, and ultimately it is converted to glucose. Whereas the glucose, upon action of the glycogen synthase, it is converted to glycogen. There are various other steps that occurs in this conversion of the glycogen to glucose and glucose to glycogen. Before starting this hormonal regulation of the glycogen metabolism, I want you to know those steps in detail. So in brief, the glycogen is converted into glucose by the action of glycogen phosphorylase, whereas the glucose is converted to glycogen by the help of the enzyme glycogen synthase. So I want you to think like this way. So the hormones which will enhance the activity of the glycogen phosphorylase, that means the hormones which will support, which will activate, which will enhance the activity of the glycogen phosphorylase, those hormone will increase the conversion of the glycogen to glucose. That means there will be the more glycogenolysis. On the other hand, the hormones which will activate or increase the action of the glycogen synthase will increase the formation of the glycogen. That means the hormone which will increase the glycogen phosphorylase will increase the metabolism of the glycogenolysis, and the hormones which will increase the action of the glycogen synthase will support the metabolism glycogenesis. So saying in that, what are the various hormones that support the glycogenolysis? The glucagon and epinephrine. The glucagon, epinephrine, and mainly the calcium will support the glycogen phosphorylase, that will increase the activity of the glycogen phosphorylase and they increase the glycogenolysis. Where in the other hand, the insulin and the enzyme protein phosphatase will increase the action of the glycogen synthase and increase the metabolism of the glycogenesis. So saying that the glucagon, epinephrine will increase the plasma level of the glucose, whereas the insulin will decrease the plasma level glucose. So that means there will be the more glucose level in the blood where there is action of the glucagon and epinephrine. There will be the more breakdown of the glycogen, whereas the glucose that is available in the blood or in plasma will be taken inside the cell, will be converted to glycogen if there is action of the insulin. So how that occurs, I will discuss detail in this video. So now let's talk about this. So glucagon, which is found in the liver, will act through the glucagon receptor that is present in the plasma membrane, and also the epinephrine, which is found in the liver and the muscles, will act through the beta receptor. And glucagon and epinephrine, the epinephrine through the beta receptor will activate the adenylate cyclase. So this activated adenylate cyclase will convert ATP to cyclic AMP. So there will be the more availability of the cyclic AMP. The cyclic AMP with the help of phosphodiesterase enzyme can be converted to 5' AMP, or the cyclic AMP will go into the action in the hormonal regulation of the glycogenesis or glycogenolysis. The cyclic AMP will activate the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase. Previously it is inactive, and with the help of cyclic AMP, the cyclic AMP protein kinase will be activated. And the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, with the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, activated cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase will increase the action of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase. This glycogen phosphorylase kinase enzyme will activate or increases the action of the glycogen phosphorylase. So if there is more activation of the glycogen phosphorylase, what happens? The glycogen will be converted to glucose 1 phosphate and eventually glucose. So eventually the glucagon and epinephrine, the epinephrine through the help of the beta receptor will ultimately activate the glycogen phosphorylase kinase through the help of the cyclic AMP, and this glycogen phosphorylase kinase will activate or increases the action of the glycogen phosphorylase that will eventually lead to the more glucose formation from the glycogen breakdown. On where epinephrine through the alpha receptor. Now let us talk about the epinephrine to the alpha receptor. Epinephrine, if act upon on the alpha receptor, it will activate the endoplasmic reticulum to produce the more amount of calcium. So this calcium will directly activate, or it directly increases the action of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, and upon increasing the action of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, it will increase the action of glycogen phosphorylase and it will convert the glycogen to glucose. Whereas the calcium also bind to calmodulin. So calcium calmodulin in muscle during the muscle contraction will eventually activate or increase the action of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, and upon increasing the action of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme activity will be increased and the conversion of the glycogen to glucose will be more. So talking about the glucagon, epinephrine through the beta receptor and the epinephrine through the alpha receptor, these all hormones and along with the calcium will eventually increase the action of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase enzyme, and they will increase the action of glycogen phosphorylase, increasing the conversion of the glycogen to glucose. That means they will support the glycogenolysis, thereby they increasing the plasma glucose level. So now let us talk about the another hormone, that is insulin. Insulin present in liver will act through the tyrosine kinase dimer receptor. So upon action on the insulin on the tyrosine kinase dimer receptor that is present in the plasma membrane, this insulin will directly activate the glycogen synthase enzyme. It means it will increase the action of the glycogen synthase enzyme. That means the glucose will be converted more to glycogen in the influence of the insulin, because the insulin will increases the action of the glycogen synthase, and insulin also increases the action of the protein phosphatase enzyme. So insulin will increase the action of the protein phosphatase enzyme. So this protein phosphatase enzyme has two roles. It will increase the action of it will activate the glycogen synthesis. It will increase the action of the glycogen synthesis, thereby increasing the conversion of the glucose to glycogen. And on the other hand, this protein phosphatase will inhibit the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, thereby decreasing the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. So the insulin will act in two ways: by directly acting on the glycogen synthase, thereby increasing the conversion of the glucose to glycogen more, and also insulin will activate protein phosphatase. The protein phosphatase will increase the action of glycogen synthase, increasing the glycogenesis, and it will inhibit the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, thereby inhibiting the glycogenolysis. So in the summary, I am going to tell you that the glucagon and epinephrine, mainly enhance the glycogenolysis, whereas the insulin will enhances the glycogenesis. So this sums up our hormonal regulation of the glycogenesis and glycogenolysis. I hope you understood this lecture. Thank you.